Come on in, guys. Welcome to the Sit-Out Bench. I'm Matt.
And I'm Joe. We're two friends from the Midlands who are absolutely die-hard Survivor fans. We're excited for you to join us for pre-season, in-season, and post-season content focusing on Survivor UK. You can follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, follow us, interact with us, and definitely give us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you're listening to the pod.
In today's episode, we'll be recapping the first episodes post-merge, episodes 9 and 10 of Survivor UK.
So take your spot on the sit-out bench and let's get started.
Matt, it's a new week. Great to be back again, recording all about Survivor UK. How are you feeling?
I am feeling great. We finally got 2 really good actual Survivor episodes. There's been quite a lot of buzz online compared to usual. There's been a lot of fun going on. Some great moments in the episode themselves that people have been talking about. So we've got lots to talk about today.
Dude, Survivor's back.
Yeah.
That's how you do it on Survivor UK. I do need to start off with some apologies. Claire O'Donoghue, Natalka Zanak, Joe Wallace, Susan King. These are all producers on Survivor UK. I need to formally apologise. I had little faith this was going well, and you proved me wrong. Honestly, these were killer. This was so good. Like 2 back-to-back bangers. I absolutely loved Survivor UK this week. It was really, really good. And it kind of just restored my faith in humanity and the BBC and Survivor UK.
Humanity.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved everything about these 2 episodes. 9 and 10 have gone down as the best episodes so far. And I think actually they've set us up in a really exciting way for the entire merge. I just don't know what made it so amazing though. Like it just felt like almost a different show to me, Matt.
It just felt like actual Survivor. And I think a lot of that came from the tightness of the edit. I'm not sure whether it was because they had more content or everything just seemed to flow nicely. There wasn't a moment where I was bored. The episodes flowed from, the auction to the scramble to tribal really fluidly, and it just felt like Survivor.
Especially that episode 9. Each week on Instagram, we put out our 1.5-minute recaps of the episodes. And trying to condense down that episode 9 was so tricky because you're right, that was so packed with just excitement. Every scene had a purpose and moved the story forward. Yeah, it was flipping brilliant. It was flipping brilliant. And like you mentioned, this feels like it's got a lot of people talking about Survivor. I think I saw the first tweet or the first X that got over 100 likes. And that was amazing.
I've seen a lot of tweets saying catching up on Survivor UK as well, so that's promising.
This feels like the episodes that we needed to really push the momentum. Do you think that, especially now that some things are kind of finishing, winter setting in, we're going to start to hear more buzz around Survivor UK moving forward?
I'd hope so. I mean, the temperatures dropping, maybe people want a bit of escapism. That's like the Death in Paradise effect, isn't it? Where people just love shows that are based on tropical islands in the winter. So hopefully we'll finally get to see a few more people tuning in.
The only thing that's not the case is Winter Love Island. Winter Love Island is a hard slog.
I was going to say, isn't it just bad?
Yeah. Watching beautiful people enjoy the sunshine while you're stuck at home with your log burner on. Oh. That sounded like a very middle class problem right there. Oh no, my log burner's not good enough. Anyway, let's carry on. As we've said now, the game has really switched gears. We've moved forward into the merge portion of the game. And of course, that means that we've said goodbye to 2 people, Lee and Ashley, gone in the screens, but not gone in our hearts. And they've become members of the jury. Matt, for people who might be new to Survivor or experiencing this for the first time after a break, give us a quick explanation. How does the jury work?
So essentially, the jury is that people voted out from the merge phase onwards get a seat on the jury, and at the end will come down to, we assume, a final 2 this season. The final 2 will give their pleas to the jury as to why they should win, and then the jury votes for who they want to win at the end of the game, and that's how we decide who becomes the sole survivor.
The jury is a super important part, especially the first person voted off often has a lot of sway in how people are interpreting the moves and interpreting what's happening. And there have been some pretty spicy jury members in both ways. There have been some that are absolutely stupid, and there are some that are absolutely iconic. Do you have any favourites, Matt, in terms of favourite jury?
I think first jurors sometimes can be great, like characters. So like someone like Chris Noble, someone like a Ream of Edge of Extinction, even though that's a bit of a wild season. I think they kind of just set the tone for the rest of the season, really. Like who the first person is voted out impacts how the end game plays out. Really, people start playing their game to tailoring it to the jury, to thinking about what do the jury want to see. You know, we think back to Ren's pre/post-season interview where they were saying how they were basing the game all around the jury. If Lee's sitting there, what are you thinking about, Lee? He wants to see some big moves. He wants to see some strong challenge wins. So kind of it sets the tone of people will start playing up to that kind of game.
I would love so much for the jury to really look at it very strategically. And I really hope it's not like the first season of US Survivor, where they were very polar opposites. And just to kind of really tease that out. So in Survivor US Season 1, you have an absolutely iconic moment from Sue Hawk where she talks about the rat and the snake in reference to the two finalists, and she hopes that it would be as nature intended. The rat will eat the snake, hoping that Richard would win. So someone who really understood the game, understood how important strategy was. If we contrast that to someone who was a jury on the same season, Greg, who asked both Richard and Kelly to pick a number between 1 and 10, and whoever got closest got his vote. You know, that's like the polar opposites of how serious people can take being on the jury.
Yeah.
We hope it's more Sue than Greg.
And did you notice that Lee accidentally referenced snakes and rats in one of his confessionals as well?
Did he really?
Yeah, he said sort of along the lines of, now we start finding out who are the rats and the snakes or something like that. And I think he was referring to people who are playing the game. Yeah, accidentally made a reference to that.
The spirit of Sue is strong.
It is. Do we think we'll be getting that jury format in this season where essentially each jury gets to ask their own question? Or do you think it'll be the US, let's talk about the game in general?
I hope it's every jury member gets their own question. I've always found that to be so much more enjoyable, because what tends to happen in the free-for-alls is that people start to dominate the conversations, or a jury member who really likes a finalist starts to speak on their behalf even more. And I hope some of the questions are very petty, based on the fact that Lee's on the jury.
I'm sure they will be. Are you more of an airhead Barbie or a curly?
Oh, okay. Let's get into it. Because, like I say, these episodes are action-packed. We're going to run you through scene by scene, but obviously breaking it down with all the spicy takes in between. Oh, that's a rhyme. Breaking it down scene by scene, spicy takes in between. That might be what this segment's called from now on.
We'll just play that clip at the start of every segment.
Okay, let's get straight into it. Episode 9. I think we can cut out all of the stuff where they're just talking about how excited they are for the next phase of the game. Let's go straight to merge. So Lena initially walks in. Joel starts talking to them. As Calaton walks in, they realise that Shy has been voted out. Very obvious enthusiasm from Leilani, who had to be restrained from clapping once she saw. But very quickly, Joel lets them know the individual portion of the game has now started, that they've merged. For some reason, I think the word buff must be trademarked, because he told everyone...
I thought that. To drop their tribe colours.
So
the least catchy thing.
saw a great tweet that was, please drop your tribe colours of multifunctional pieces of clothing. Anyway, buffs were dropped, people hugged and embraced. And really interested, Matt, what did you get just from people hugging? Did you already get to see a sense of who was really excited to see who and who was just being polite?
People were still like running back to their old tribes and stuff. To be honest, I wasn't paying too much attention because my eyes were glued to Leilani throughout this scene where she shouted, "What does that mean?" when Joel announced the merge, and then later said, "Is that a good thing?" to Tanuka. I was too busy laughing at that to pay much attention to who was hugging who, to be honest.
Leilani, the gift that keeps giving. I thought a lot of it was very polite. There were kind of two that I picked out. One was Pegleg and Hannah. I think that was a real embrace for people who haven't seen a lot of screen time and probably talks to the relationship they had that we haven't seen. But the one that really stood out to me was like Tanuka and Nathan. It was like Nathan had just got his best friend back. He was like not letting her go. There was a proper squeeze on that hug. Yeah. Let's get into the meat and bones and play that tape because Matt, you were 100% right about the Survivor auction.
But I think like the main one, if we go in like British, it'd probably be like an afternoon tea, so like scones with jam and cream, They're like cups of tea, maybe like sandwiches cut into weird shapes, that kind of thing. This was just great. I mean, it's following the week where we just got the Survivor auction back in the US after some time off there as well. So it's felt like a big nostalgia blast the last couple of weeks of old Survivor. So this was great.
There are a couple of comments that I wanted to make sort of more broadly before we get into the nitty gritty about some things. First off, how cheap is everyone? Like they'd had 2,500 pesos.
They were bidding nothing.
Yeah. I loved it. Joel tried to let them know, guys, this is only worth like £35. That didn't stop them. They wanted to take those pesos home.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they were bidding next to nothing. I think Lee got, was it the toothbrush for like 200? That must have been like £2 or something like that.
We had some really good items to start. We started off with the bacon butty. Lawrence is a freak, man.
I was going to say,
he's such a
he
freak.
mentioned his mother again in this one.
In his confessional, yeah, I hope there's a pony or my mother.
Yeah.
Guy has some issues. But we love him.
Chugging the ketchup out of the bottle made me feel physically ill.
Yeah. Honestly, if you put me out there without food for 19 days and you give me a bacon butty and some coffee, the first thing I'm doing is not pouring sugar into my mouth. Like, like don't get me wrong, I'll do that, but I'll do that at the end. Like that bacon's going cold, man.
Yeah, it's a unique.
So Lawrence wins the bacon butty. We then have a bidding war for brushing their teeth. And I must admit, I tweeted this out in real time. Both Lee and Nathan look like they have perfect veneers. Not at all what I expect some teeth to look like after not brushing for so long.
I mean, I could not relate to the excitement over a toothbrush. I mean, like, I feel like that's why they look like what they do, and I look like what I look like. But then they were like, oh, I've been trying to find something to clean my teeth for days. I was just like, that is not what I'd have been thinking about.
It was good though, and I liked that they had the opportunity to share as well. I thought that was really nice.
Yeah.
Friends who brush their teeth together stay together.
Or not, as the case may be. There's let them out of the same episode.
We then got to the first, I think, really exciting one, which is obviously the towel. No, sorry. It was the afternoon tea.
Yes, I predicted that one as well.
Quintessentially British. I think this might have been the best food item.
There was just so much of it, like different sandwiches, different scones. Amazing.
And I just want to say, you called the English tea party. What are they called? Like a sandwich tray, an afternoon tea. Yeah.
You just said it. I was like, what?
The tea party is something very different, I'm sure. But yeah, you called afternoon tea. I'm going to say that I was right as well. Play the tape. I think chicken and chips is exactly the same as Nando's.
It's a Nando's, yeah.
It's Nando's without the branding.
This is literally just a Nando's burger.
Let's get to the really exciting ones, though. So first off, Chris successfully wins the bid for all of the items that he needs to wash his hair. Shampoo, conditioner, towel. Great bid by Chris as well. Flawless hair. Has to take care of it. But what he sees inside the towel is a scroll is tucked in so only he could see. Two things to mention for me. First off, I love the cover for this. Ooh, la la. Well done, mate. No one saw it. And as well, how sneaky he was to move it in front of everyone to his back pocket.
That was hard. Like all eyes were on him. I'm very surprised that he managed to do that. I think I'd have just sort of accidentally like fake dropped the whole thing on the floor and then picked it up. But then how do you put it in? I don't know. It's very hard to do that. I was very impressed.
I wonder if people did suspect something, only because even when he was going to collect it, sort of going round to the side, going round the back, everyone else was collecting them from front onwards. No one's going to trust anyone anymore, though, in the Survivor auction going forwards.
No, definitely not. But I think that's the most exciting way to do it. Like bidding for an advantage is one thing, but I think hiding it in something and seeing how someone reacts to like having to be sneaky, I think that's the most interesting way of doing it.
In Australian Survivor, Shani won an advantage inside a jar of lollies or a jar of sweets. She was able to take that back to camp and it was like an easy way to hide it. I liked that this made him, like you say, sneak it in front of everyone into his pocket and that extra element of kind of risk.
Yeah, I've just watched the episode where Annalise finds the advantage inside her cornetto at the ice cream parlour. I just love that, like, forced panic that they put them into, where they're just like, oh crap, now what am I going to do?
Yeah. And the other item that I think was really, obviously we had a pint in between, but the one that really blew my mind as well was bidding for the advantage. And I think there's a really interesting point here. So obviously Joel reveals that there's an advantage. Everybody still has money.
And they all sit there like, no.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, diehard Survivor fans will tell you, don't buy the advantage, because that's the kiss of death, isn't it? That is you clearly marking out yourself from the herd. But I actually think it was a disadvantage not to bid for it in this season of Survivor UK, where people don't understand that. If you're in that situation, Matt, are you bidding for it, or are you holding back?
Oh, it's hard to say. I mean, if I'm Chris, I probably don't, because I've just got that advantage anyway. And then if anyone saw that and then I buy another advantage, then that looks bad. I don't think it's too bad, especially if you're a Calaton person. Like, obviously, you're coming into this merge 5 versus 6, I think it was. I don't see any problem with going for it. I mean, it's a game at the end of the day. What are people going to say? Oh, you're playing the game too hard? Probably, but oh well, you've got an advantage at that point.
I think that's definitely what they would say in this season.
Yeah.
At least that's what I thought they would, but it didn't seem to be a real detriment to Chris, to be honest. It didn't show any other content in
I would say it probably played into what happens in the following episode.
Yeah, potentially. Definitely episode 10. And that was kind of Survivor Auction. I really liked it. I thought it was good. I thought it was clean. I could have done with a couple more food rewards. Can't believe we didn't get nachos and margaritas.
I wonder if there was some cooks. It seemed quite short. I mean, like the section was long enough, but it seemed like in terms of how many rewards were actually shown, there wasn't that many. And it seemed some people didn't get anything at all, despite not bidding anything at all over, which I think is strange.
Some people want to keep their pesos. They've got,
I don't think Tanuke bid on anything in the clips that we were shown. So
anyway, that's Survivor Auction. Loved it. Love to see it. Definitely bring that back next season. We then get back into kind of this scramble even before the immunity challenge starts. And this is really dividing out the relationships that kind of exist and people starting to figure out, who do I need to pull into my alliance? Who's with me? Who's against me? Some really good scenes that I think were really telling to me was Matthew feeling really torn about spending time both on Calaton and Lenena. It feels like he had some really genuine relationships on both sides. Nathan being reunited with Tanuke, and a really funny moment, I thought, when Tanuke tells Leilani Nathan didn't know Jess was being voted out, and she says, "Oh, I can love you again now."
Yeah.
That was really big. And obviously one of the things that starts to happen here is that we start to see Lee mobilizing the lads. And inside the lads, in his exit interviews, he's talked about how he used the words lads the same way I use the word guys, just to kind of describe everyone. Yeah. And I think even in these scenes, you can see that he is including Hannah in his alliance. What did you start to see, Matt?
Yeah, so I agree that Matt's confessional was really interesting about feeling torn between both sides. I think obviously he must be talking about his relationship that he's made with Lee there, because I didn't think there was anyone else on Lenena that potentially he'd have that much of a tight alliance with. I think the Calaton lot are going to pretty much stick to that alliance at this point, and I think that's the smartest thing to do. They're very close, and I don't think anything's going to break them up. With the Lee thing, I mean, I felt like the way that the show presented this was kind of hard to defend him at this point, to be quite honest, because obviously he has the chat at the well, and there's Doug Pegleg, fine, and Lawrence, of all people, who he's never met before in the game. And he's like, yeah, we've got to keep the lads together, which obviously looked pretty bad. But then the thing that I think looked worse was that he said he needs to get the negative vibes off the island, talking specifically about Tanuke and Leilani, who everyone else is like the most positive people ever. So yeah, I think that came off looking pretty bad for Lee there. And I think that kind of started the downfall of Lee this episode.
If you told me at the start of the season that I would have been the biggest advocate for Lee, I would have thought you would have been crazy. But even watching it in real time, like I'm arguing with my wife about if he's a misogynist or if he's not. But I have to advocate. I think the saving grace is Hannah. He clearly resonates with Hannah, and he clearly is including her as one of the lads in the alliance. But it's hard to have all of the women in your alliance at this point. You have to be against some of them.
Yes, but also he voted out all the other ones as well. No, I just think Lee's not a misogynist. Lee just wanted to play the game with, who he felt comfortable with. That happened to be the guys on Hannah. It just didn't look great for him. And I did see in his interview how he literally did say that his strategy was to vote out whoever performed the worst in the challenge that day. And like, that's fine. Like, it's not the way we'd probably play Survivor, but you know, it makes sense.
I'm not sure that's always true either. If you look at his voting history, there were people who sat out challenges who he didn't vote for. So
I guess that's the weakest.
yeah. What was really surprising, I believed that at some point Lenena would split. I didn't think they'd split this early. Almost immediately as people come onto the beach, Ash and Chris are starting conversations with Tanuke, with Leilani. Ashley have a really strong conversation about a women's alliance and not voting out other women. I was just really surprised that this happened so quickly, and it made me think that argument they had around throwing a challenge must have been a lot more, or carried a lot more weight than maybe I thought it would have.
So I think it was less about Lenena splitting up and more about Ash flipping, to be honest. And it makes sense because they've voted for every single tribal council. Hannah hates her. Like, I think it makes sense for Ashley to flip here, especially if she feels like she's made better connections with the Calaton tribe members. So I was fine with it. I think it's unfortunate, you know, comparisons between the blue and orange/red tribes on US Survivor and UK Survivor right now. Kind of seeing the same thing where one tribe falls apart and it's looking pretty bleak for them moving forwards.
I think I was just surprised that it happened so soon. So similarly to when we talked about them cannibalizing earlier and getting Ren out, we just thought maybe that's just a move too soon. Yeah. I thought there was just another vote before you want to make that break, and by then you've developed stronger relationships and you're becoming more valuable to the minority as that kind of swing vote in the middle, whereas here you feel kind of dispensable. The other big thing that happens before we get to the immunity challenge is obviously Chris reads his advantage. So in the scroll that he bid for very openly, he gets an extra vote. And in the secret scroll that he found from the towel, he gets a clue to the immunity idol. Him and Ash go idol hunting along the beach and find it in a cave. And we have the second official immunity idol that we've seen on the show, but the third immunity idol found in Survivor UK. Two great advantages, and what a blessing to have it in Chris's hands. To have both of those.
Yeah, completely agree. When we saw that extra vote come out, I was shocked. Like, I was so pleasantly surprised. I thought we were going to go idols only for the first season, but the fact that they're throwing the extra vote in there shows that the producers are intent on moving the show forwards as a strategic game rather than anything else. So I was really glad about that. What did you think about Ash giving Chris the idol so quickly?
I thought she was going to keep it. 100%. Yeah. When she found it, I was like, oh, keep that. Hold it tight. Tight. You know, she's a little bit damned, to be honest. You know, if she didn't hand it over, she would have caused way more problems. Yeah. She had to hand it over to Chris in that moment. But I did think there was a part of me that was hoping that she would say, I found that. Finders keepers.
And I think Chris would have played it on Ashley if he didn't feel like he was in danger at all.
Hard disagree on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, total disagree. I think Chris is there to win, and he's not going to win by playing an idol on Ashley. Chris, let us know. Well, to be honest, it doesn't matter, because you'll say you would have played it on her, but in real time, you never would have. But I liked this, and I liked that it was Chris who found it, because it feels like, as we're going to see in episode 10 and moving forward, someone who is really going to do something with it and make things happen. So really glad it was in his hands rather than like Hannah's.
Poor Hannah. To be fair, we have no evidence to say whether Hannah would have played that.
Okay, let's get to the immunity challenge. First things first, the team immunity idol sucked. What did you think of the immunity necklace?
So I saw that you tweeted out that this is way better, and I disagree.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you remember that the other one was a tree?
I do remember the other one's a tree, and it's definitely better than the tree. However, it still looks bad. Like, it looks like a piece of, I don't know, it looks like it's made out of clay, which is clearly not, which is what confuses me, because I'm like, why does it look like this? It looks like maybe they've got a bit of metal and then like paper mache some shapes on and then painted it. I don't know. It just looked a bit weird to me.
They're definitely leaning into like the Egyptian theme.
Yeah, it looked very Egyptian.
I'm trying to think of the word to describe that, and I'm not sure what the the ancient Near Eastern term is for a gold necklace. But I thought this was better. I thought it was a little bit too tight. When Doug put it on for the first time, it looked like a choker.
I was gonna say.
Very sexy.
God.
The other thing we have to talk about is the name that they decided to come up with. Obviously, at the merge, people get to decide the new tribe name, and the name they came up with was Kalena.
I mean, I'm fine with it. The thing that you have to think about with other shows is like Survivor US. People come on that show and they already have 5 different merged tribe names in their mind of what they want it to be called. Whereas these people are like, what? We're now one tribe? What? We have to name the tribe? Mash them together. Like, it makes sense. It's a fine name. It's acceptable.
I'm not sure if it is.
What would you have called it?
I don't know. At this point, I don't know if it's better to just... It felt very much like, on The Apprentice, when they get to choose their team names.
And they're like, synergy.
Our team name is Knowledge.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be quite so on the nose.
Yeah.
But equally, I think when people come in with like the crazy tribe names, who is it? I can't remember if it's US Survivor or AU Survivor, where the tribe name is their name. They came in with like a Fiji version of their name.
I don't know. Malcolm does his mom's name backwards. I remember that one. And then there's the one that's like, love you, miss you, really want to kiss you, abbreviated. And then the worst tribe name of all time, obviously, America from Worlds Apart.
It made sense why they chose it. It wasn't the most exciting thing, but...
Pretty much guessed the colours right, though. And what I found interesting with that is they gave them all new water bottles and bags as well to match the tribe colour. Do they normally do that?
No, usually you keep the same. Definitely in the US season at the moment, because it's always quite jarring, I think, when you see them, especially in their alliances. They tend to stick with tribes, and you can always see they have the same kit together.
Yeah.
I'm surprised the BBC hasn't merged some of this stuff as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised because there's just been like no promotion for it, really.
Okay, point taken. But yeah, hit us up, BBC. We want to know where we can get some of these buffs.
We'll buy a pink canteen from you.
Listen, if they don't do it soon, Amazon will become the official distributor of knockoff buffs.
Oh God, imagine. It'd be incredible.
Or knockoff tribe colours.
Authentic La Nonna buff Survivor UK.
You can take the first 2 letters of your name and add it to Lenena. Malena. Okay, immunity challenge time then. So the challenge is leg up. Again, I thought it was a really good challenge. Really enjoyed this. They have to hold their leg on what is essentially a seesaw, balancing a large clay pot at the end. If at any point they touch their leg with their arms or try and support it with anything else, they're out. If they drop the pot, they're out. Really just kind of a balance and endurance challenge. Love the challenge. I thought it was a really good kind of, merge episode challenge that gave everyone an equal shot, had a chance to be really dramatic. There was a very clear sense, though, of what the strategy was going in. And that strategy was outlast Lee, then don't give a crap.
Yeah. Then give it to whoever.
Like, if the warning signs weren't there for Lee already, that should have been a huge red flag.
Yeah, when he dropped and they were all like, okay, Doug, you win immunity.
Yeah.
I also loved the fact that obviously when they were doing the practice run with the fake players, that the vases obviously didn't smash because they'd scattered loads of variously medium-sized rocks around the base of all the seesaws.
They still didn't smash most of them, to be
No.
fair. It was really strange that they were so openly rooting for Lee to drop out first, and whether or not there was kind of a healthy sense of competition going into that, and Lee was kind of aware of it. I do think one of the big talking points that we have to address, though, is whether or not on the sit-out bench, if we're going to count this as an official win for Doug in terms of individual immunity. I'm inclined not to. If you're one of 4 people remaining, one of 5 people remaining, and you say, please, can I have this? And they all give it to you, that doesn't feel like you earned it. When Jeff keeps saying, you have to earn the merge. I was like the furthest away from earning the merge.
I would say it is because I think while it doesn't show challenge prowess. I think it does show social game. It's no different to the challenge where it's like, who do you hate the most, etc. Like, it's no different to someone winning that challenge because everyone's willing to not stab their sack dummy that looks like them the most or whatever.
I think he does a lot of subtle things, though. If I'm sitting on the sit-out bench...
Meta.
I'm looking at that and I'm saying those 5 people up there have absolutely no worry about being voted out.
This is true, yeah.
What does that tell me about my position in the game if 5 people feel like they don't need immunity? It's a pretty bold statement to make.
It's like when people like sit out for whatever reason, it does raise some eyebrows.
If they didn't give this to Doug, let's say they play this out and they're warriors like coach, who do you think would win and why is the answer Leilani?
I was going to say it's either Leilani or Tanuke, realistically. This is one of those challenges that is built for women, and one of these types of challenges should have been thrown in multiple times in the pre-merge, but whatever, we'll digress from that point.
Yeah, really, really liked it. Either way, Doug wins the first individual immunity of the season. One point I do want to call out really quickly is there's a moment as the challenge is happening that Lee decides to go crane kick mode. Obviously, Joel calls him out as kind of Daniel-san with some Miyagi-Do karate. But am I wrong in saying, okay, I've been trying to think of a comp for Lee all season. Is Johnny from the Cobra Kai dojo the best comp for Lee that you've ever seen?
Never seen that.
You've never...
I was literally reading these notes and I was like, I'm going to have to pass on that one.
Wow. You've never seen Homeward Bound and you've never watched Cobra Kai?
No, I haven't.
You should watch Cobra Kai, just on a side note.
Okay.
It's freaking awesome. And you should watch all 5 Karate Kid movies.
I think I've seen the first couple of Karate Kids.
Okay, see, you're invested already. So I think Johnny Lawrence is a really good comp for Lee. But it got me thinking about other people who are really good comps for Lee. And one in particular that comes to mind, and I'm not sure if you all have watched it yet, but there's a guy on Australian Survivor, Champions versus Contenders 1, called Zach.
I don't think so. I vaguely recognise the name, so I'll probably...
Okay, so he became famous in Australia for being Hunter in Australian Gladiators. He goes on Australian Survivor, Champions versus Contenders, and he, like, you want to see a sexist Survivor player? Like, go watch his first season. Okay, at one point he says... Oh, I'm sure the women would be really good at challenges if there was a dishwashing challenge.
Wow.
That is a legit line he says to the camera. Okay, that is a sexist guy. But his whole thing is, he goes there in Champions versus Contenders. He's extremely sexist, like way more overtly than Lee is, about women not being very good in challenges and let's vote out the women. He comes back in All Stars as a totally different player, as like this social butterfly who's talking to everyone about his birds. And he feeds them all the time. And I think that is the kind of journey that we could see from Lee. Someone who first time makes a lot of mistakes, but actually underneath, there's a lot of soft, sensitive stuff that's going to come out later. We'll leave a YouTube link to some of Zach's moments and let us know if he's the best comp.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see Lee come back. And I think given... the chance to presumably watch a few seasons of Survivor and understand the game a bit better, I think Lee has all the tools needed to do well at this game, to be honest.
We then get into the scramble. And in the scramble, it's pretty clear cut. Everyone is gunning for Lee. So particularly Chris and Ashley controlling the narrative around Lee wanting to form an all boys alliance, around really we need to get him now. He's the leader. He's the strong one. Kind of what we expected. One thing that was really interesting is when they do pull Hannah into the conversation around needing to vote out Lee, one of the really quick things that happens, and great editing here, is Ashley says, if Lee finds out I'm toast, immediate cut to Hannah telling Lee that they're voting for him.
And this is where they've done Hannah and Lee's relationship a bit of an injustice here, where we don't really know too much about them, so it kind of makes Hannah come off a bit naive almost in this situation where it's like, why are you telling Lee? But I think it's probably the right move for Hannah's game, seeing as Lee's a number one ally and she wants to try and flip the numbers. However, I do want to say about Hannah is the confessional where she says, I quote, I'm in disbelief that Chris and Ash are targeting Lee. Hannah, who confirms in her pre-post season interview that she has watched seasons of Survivor. So,
Let's just talk about Hannah just for a moment. For someone who's now going to be in episode 11, we have got like no Hannah screen time, and this is gearing up to be really strange if she goes too much deeper.
Yeah, I have no idea what Hannah's trajectory is going to be in this game. I can't. They said it just doesn't make sense for her, so I don't know if she's going to get a bit of a spike and then go home. Maybe she's just left straggling at the end and then gets taken out because of that. Maybe she's the losing finalist. Who knows? Maybe she's the winner.
We haven't even seen a video montage, I don't think.
No, we haven't. I've been waiting for it. As soon as that comes up on the screen, it's going to be bye, Hannah.
Yeah, it's too late in the season now to play a video montage.
Is this person who you should have known by now?
The other thing I thought was really surprising is how they're doing everything in front of everyone. So we critiqued Chris earlier in the season for talking to Leilani about the outpost and the fish story right in front of everyone else where they could see all of this scrambling is happening as people are eating rice shoulder to shoulder. Really strange.
This cast do not care, and I kind of like that. Like, imagine how chaotic like Survivor nowadays would be if someone was like targeting someone right behind them.
Lee does try and fight back and try to get the numbers. He approaches Matthew, he approaches Lawrence to try and get kind of the 6 that he needs. Going into Tribal Council, Matt, did you have any doubt in your mind if Lee was going home?
No, I was pretty certain it was going to be Lee, to be honest. There was a slight worry, but I really thought, thinking about what makes the most sense for other people's games, I was pretty sure Lee was toast.
Well, we go into Tribal Council. There's a lot of conversations to kick it off about people being fake, about people not being genuine, about strategy. And then we get to the crowning moment of all of Survivor UK so far. Matt, take it away.
So we get Lee, who is obviously getting a bit irate at this point, a bit irritated that he knows his name's been thrown out. Hannah's told him about it, and he decides that the best way to handle this is to call out Chris and Ashley by calling Ashley Airhead Barbie over here. And then I've kind of found it even funnier that he just said Curly Chris.
Yeah.
What are you even trying to make out of that?
Those are the worst insults when someone correctly identifies your hair type.
Yes. And then you get everyone like shocked, and you just hear Leilani going, "Let's be respectful."
Yeah, let's be respectful of curly-haired people. The struggle is real.
I mean, I was impressed with how they handled this, to be fair. Like, Ashley would have been well in her rights to like fire back at that, but I was quite impressed with how she kept her cool there. But yeah, this wasn't a great look for Lee, and I think it pretty much sealed his fate if it wasn't sealed already.
Yeah, this was a horrible move. Like, even if Matthew and Lawrence were on the fence, this pretty much cemented the fact that they weren't going to go his way. And I think he just wanted to go out with a bang, to be honest. I think he knew the writing was on the wall, and you reach for whatever sort of insults you can. Do you remember when you were at school and you just used to say to someone, "So's your face"?
Yeah.
It felt very much like that. I do like that he called him a poodle as well.
The poodle was a fun one, yeah. That's like taking the curly one step further into an insult rather than.
Please, if there's a fan out there, someone Photoshop Chris's face onto a poodle.
That was it. He said he would have called him Ken, but he's more of a pet. Fantastic.
To be fair, Ashley takes a high road, you're right. She does say, I don't want to take it personal, but I thought Chris's reaction was really interesting. I thought he was clearly hurt by it in a weird way, because he seemed to be taking a lot more personally, reacting a lot more negatively to Lee blowing up. And eventually to asks him sort of point blank to say, didn't you want to have an all-males alliance? And it kind of blew back in Chris's face, I thought.
Chris probably reacts like this because he is someone that's here to just play the game and have fun, and he doesn't think that people are going to, take it personally. But I agree. I think what Lee does out here is the correct way of coming back at the situation, which is to blow up Chris and Ashley's spot, saying that Chris threw the challenge to get rid of Tanuke.
In hindsight, and obviously it's 2020, I think this was the right information that he should have used back on the beach. This conversation with Tanuke should have happened during the scramble, because I think that is such a good bargaining chip for him to go to Tanuke and say, Tanuke, I was going to vote for you. However, I have since learned that someone else is gunning for me. I want you to know that Chris also wanted to vote for you, and so did Ashley. They wanted you out. They were going to throw a challenge. And I think that would have been enough to make Tanuke and all those other Calaton people vote with Lee to get Ashley out.
Yeah, I think that could have absolutely flipped the vote there. And it was pretty good gameplay that he fought to blow that, to be fair. I'm not sure if he did it to be strategic or just did it because that's what he thought would hurt them the most. But it's a shame he didn't try that earlier because that would have been some good strategy there.
We then eventually go to the votes. At this point, Joel asks if anyone wants to play an immunity idol. Nobody does. The votes are then read. There's 4 votes for Ashley, and the rest of the votes are for Lee. Let's just talk about the Ashley votes. I think we expected 3 of them, Lee, Hannah, and Pegleg.
Yeah.
I was really blown away that Doug voted Ashley with Lee.
Yeah, this was a big red flag for me for Doug, because he clearly thought that everyone was voting for Ashley, otherwise he wouldn't have done that. I'm pretty sure if he'd have known Lee was going home, he would have voted for Lee. Or maybe it was a play for his jury vote, we don't know.
Oh, potentially, yeah. So he just wants Lee on side.
Yeah, because I think Lee is someone that's going to vote purely based on who he likes more. And I think if you stab him in the back for no reason right at the end, then that's it. You know, he probably loses his vote by doing that.
The only other thing I thought, he's talked, Doug, in the previous episode about wanting to take Pegleg very far in the game. Whether or not it was to solidify a relationship with Pegleg moving forwards. But it didn't look great anyway, optics-wise.
No. And just quickly before we move on, I also wanted to bring up, did you notice the way that Joel said jury?
No.
Because it made me really uncomfortable both times he said it. Because he didn't pronounce it wrong, but it added an E in, but not really. And it just sounded so, it was like, jury. They will become a member of the jury. Jury.
I didn't hear that one, if I'm honest. I'm going to have to go back and listen to it.
It might just be me, because I was literally sat there when you stare at a word and you're like, that doesn't look right. I was literally like that, but with pronouncing it, I was like, do I pronounce it jury?
I didn't hear that one. The one I did hear was Joel not pronouncing his T's in immunity in episode 10. So he said, this one's for immunity. And it was just really jarring for some reason. But yeah, I'm going to have to go back and listen. We'll try and timestamp it if we can find it in time.
If I am right and if I'm not going crazy, we just need to put a reel up of Joel just saying jury.
Joel pronouncing words wrong. It's the full 90 seconds. Lee obviously becomes the first member of the jury. I think he's going to play a really pivotal part in how the jury looks at things. I think people are going to be playing up to kind of his game style in a way to make sure they do have his vote. I think also the people he will vote for right now are relatively limited. I don't think Chris is ever getting his vote. I don't think Leilani is ever getting his vote. No. I don't think Tanuke is ever getting his vote.
No.
Something to keep in mind, I suppose.
You know, Ashley being the second person on the jury can she has a chance to sway Lee there, because I don't think Lee's going to convince her that no one should ever bring up the word strategy again in Survivor. So who knows?
I haven't seen any Ponderosa videos, but I'd love to see the Ponderosa video of where they both meet for the first time. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. Let's do a quick in requiem of Lee. Matt, how are you going to remember Lee?
Lee is going to always be remembered as the biggest character, the villain of the first season of Survivor UK, and someone who may have spoken out against the strategy, but was actually someone who was playing a strategic game without realising. Although there's some ickiness associated with the way his game played out, I don't think it was necessarily the worst game in the world, you know. Strong men need strong men as shields. That's just kind of how it works. So I think he played a decent game, and I'd like to see another go with Lee.
Yeah, totally agree. Especially for someone who's never seen Survivor before. I think he did a really good job. He's the hero that we didn't want, but he's the hero that we needed in terms of the drama driving things forward this season. You know, we needed Lee. There were dark days back in episode 3. But we needed Lee to be there and to cause some drama and to give us some action. So yeah, I think we'll remember definitely his challenge prowess. We'll talk about someone who's focused on competition, who's not sexist, but inadvertently verts out all of the women. Statistically unlikely, strategically possible.
I really think that, especially following Jess shy and then Ashley after him, we're really going to feel the loss of that tension and drama across the season. So I think he brought a lot to the show.
To be honest, I'm going to go out and say he's become my personal favourite over the last 9 episodes. Not because I think he played the greatest game or he's the greatest Survivor player, but I think he's a very endearing character who's doing a lot of good in the world. So Lee, we're excited to have you on when the BBC finally let us. Any other thoughts about episode 9?
No, I just thought it was a cracker of an episode.
Yeah, absolute banger. Let's move then into episode 10. And episode 10 starts the night after Tribal Council. And Chris and Ashley recognise that everything that's happened has caused cracks in their relationships with Tanuke. And so they are in recovery mode, trying to fix it and trying to build back that trust. How are you playing this, Matt? If someone's blown up your game in Tribal Council, how are you building back that trust?
I mean, you can either go the it's a lie route, or you can go the I'm sorry we didn't tell you, but I mean they're kind of screwed. Quite honestly, like there's no great way out of this, which is why realistically going back to Chris throwing the challenge, it kind of sank Ashley's game, but also probably his game in the long run. Realistically, I think if they didn't do that, they'd have no trouble maintaining this trust.
Yeah, I think at that point you're right. They opt to go with the he's lying, we didn't say that, he's twisting it. And I don't think that's ever going to work. No one's going to believe that. I think the only viable strategy here is to make a clean break from that other person and to sell them out.
Yeah.
It's to say it wasn't me, it was all Chris. Or it wasn't me, it was all Ashley.
I agree. And we also get Lawrence at the top of this episode. I just wanted to mention quickly saying, it's another day, he's woken up and he's surprised he hasn't been removed. What did he mean by this?
I was most surprised that they were blurring out his butt cheeks. Hashtag free the white whale. Maybe
he keeps mentioning his mom and feet and crabs in an attempt to get removed, and and he's surprised that it hasn't worked yet.
You just think he has like some super kinky fetishes, just like
the remnants are being left in the edit.
Yeah. Like Matthew has graduated and moved on to become a proper Survivor player. Lawrence is still in the dodo.
Yeah.
There's also Doug, I think, is the really key part that comes out, is that Doug, even though voting for Ashley at the previous Tribal Council, he's really using his strategic and social chops well here to be able to play both sides and reassure all groups that he's still available, that he's still focused on building friendships, and that he still feels very real and open. And I thought this was a good move by Doug to be placing himself in the middle like this.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Doug knows how to play the game. And that's just the bottom line of it. He knows what he needs to do to sort of worm his way into and out of any situation. And it's just a case of whether he gets caught doing it or not.
We flash forward then to the next day. Ashley is trying to repair relationships still, this time with Tanuke and Leilani, to try and build to refresh this idea of a woman's alliance. I thought, funny side note from this, when Tanuke was voting out Lee, when we sort of flash to see what she says as she's holding up the camera, she says, "I'm sorry, Lee, but I can't vote out another woman at this point in the game." Well, it turns out that point in the game was only in episode 9. By episode 10, it's fine to vote out another woman.
It's a new day. It's a new dawn.
Yeah. One person's gone. I now feel more comfortable not voting out another woman.
Yeah, I think episode 10 is one of those episodes where I don't think anybody plays optimally across this episode whatsoever. And I think how Tanuke and Leilani approach this conversation with Ash is a big example of that. The way they straight tell her to her face, we don't trust you after this. And, you know,
Brutal honesty.
Clearly Ashley would never want to go back to Lyanna, but the fact that she goes back and votes with Lyanna by the end of the episode shows how badly they play this.
And I think it's really obvious as well that the Women's Alliance is just a way to try and tug Tanuke and Leilani into working with her, because Hannah's not there. If it was really a Women's Alliance thing, then there'll be the 4 women still in the game talking about this. But she knows that Hannah will never work with her again, so she just excludes her.
Yeah, the thing with Hannah is she doesn't have connections with... Well, actually, she's been on the same tribe as Tanuke and Leilani. I guess both Ash and Tanuke and Leilani have voted against her and her alliances at every opportunity to this point. So she doesn't really have any incentive to attempt to work with them whatsoever.
Yeah, totally agree. She's in the stronger position right now, despite losing the vote technically at the last tribal council.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the real hero of episode 10, whose plan comes forward here. And I have never been higher on Pegleg.
Agree.
He blew my mind this episode. It was so good. Pegleg outlines the decoy plan, telling Chris and Ashley to vote him. Great move. You know, don't freak people out. Tell people you'll be the decoy plan. And then I thought expert survivor knowledge convinces everyone to do this split vote. He's convinced 8 people who don't want to play Survivor to do a fantastic move. Yeah. So good.
Yeah, and it's Peg's plan that eventually comes to fruition this episode as well, despite the fact that he wants himself to be the decoy and then wins the immunity. But you know what? To be fair, that could be like a big brain move. Like, tell everyone the plan, make everyone accept the plan because you're the decoy, and then prevent yourself from being the decoy and just be like, oops, I was under the water, I couldn't hear how many people had got out, sorry.
I thought you could all do this as well for longer.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought this was brilliant, and he must have a real positive vibe with everyone to be able to explain that and to be able to get everyone to buy in so willingly at the beginning. And what I did love about this episode for me is that it was ruthless. It was really ruthless, and Peg's plan, it was foolproof. From that moment until the end of the episode, you knew it was going to work. It was so good.
Absolutely. And we'll talk a bit later about whether I think it was the right move for anyone, which, you know, it wasn't. But I do think that he executed the move really well. And I do think it wasn't the worst move in the world for Lyanna, but I do think there was a better one.
Okay, we're going to disagree about this. I think this was the great move. I think this was really good. Let's get to the immunity challenge first. And again, Matt, you called this in the pre-season, last gasp. There was a little hint given to us, of course, by the the bios. But yeah, another fantastic challenge. And I thought editing did a brilliant job on this in making it feel really dramatic. I loved that they lowered the grates every 10 minutes.
I was going to say that was chaotic evil. Now we'll drown you.
And I really got the sense as I was watching it, they will just keep going lower and lower until there is no air.
Yeah. And I think that this kind of fixes the issue that US had with the Challenger a year or so ago, where the tide went down and then everyone was just sort of floating in the water for a bit.
That was such an uncomfortable US episode to watch. It's going down. It's going down. It's like, should we stay here until the tide comes in again?
Jeff's just like, okay, you all win.
But yeah, I thought this was really good by the editing team to build up the drama in this, to make it really exciting, a really great watch. I loved this. I loved it. I do want to touch as well, just before we talk about the winner, let's just talk about Nathan.
Yes.
Nathan has dropped out. Dropped out is a strong word. Nathan has
lost.
He has lost both immunity challenges, being the first one to drop out of each challenge. Now, online, Matt, the narrative that he's spinning is that he's doing this on purpose to lower his threat level. Do you believe this? And yeah, why is the answer no?
Yeah, sorry, Nathan. I'm not buying that one bit. I think inadvertently it is helping him. But, like, especially with Last Gasp, how the hell do you know when anyone else has dropped out of that? There's no way of knowing. And with the Seesaw one, like, clearly he was not doing well at it at all.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just there's a little bit of sour grapes here. You know, he lost fair and square, but he doesn't want to fess up to that. This is my strategy.
Do you know what? It's fine to not win any challenges. Like, I wouldn't, you know.
Oh, please. You'd be great at this.
I would throw every single challenge and I would maintain that narrative from pre-season to post-season.
I'm doing this on purpose.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be a misogynist.
Yeah, I don't want to be a threat. And I want to prove that weaknesses can win.
Put that in your audition tape and let me know how it goes. Yeah, I don't believe that Nathan is throwing these challenges on purpose. I think they're just challenges they're not suited to him. And you know what, Nathan? We know you listen. That's okay. Not everyone can be great at everything. Some of us aren't great at a lot, to be honest. So you've got more than most of us.
You've got the back muscles and the teeth. You've set up for life.
Oh, okay.
3 hours later.
So at the very end, we have a showdown between Matthew and Pegleg. Ultimately, Pegleg stays under the water the longest and wins the first proper individual immunity of the season. Great moment for Pegleg.
Yeah, and it's felt due to have more Pegleg content because he kind of gets spikes and troughs throughout the season so far. And I'm glad he got, the spotlight shined on him here, especially because it ties in so nicely with his background as well. And I just thought this was a great character moment for him.
Yeah, we are loving the Pegleg content. We had a great story confirmed to us by production. Again, multiple sources confirming this earlier in the season, where we were told that Chris went out spearfishing and unfortunately got caught in one of the currents, one of the riptides, was being dragged out to sea and drowning. And I think I'll have to quote it when they said that Pegleg looked like Aquaman as he dived into the water and swim out and save Chris's life.
It is shocking that didn't make air, to be quite honest. I think it was either the episode with the letters from home or the one before it, and that they were gagging for content. So come on, put that in the episode.
Yeah, Pegleg is a hero. Absolute hero. Love it. He said later when he was at Tribal Council he was timing the sets. Is he lying here?
No, I think that's probably something he has to do as a surfer. I don't really understand what that means, but I feel like if you're surfing, you kind of want to know the exact amount of time between the waves. So yeah,
whenever I surf, this is kind of my theory, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a champion surfer, so the difference is great. But what I tend to do is I tend to look when there's a bump in the wave, and if I'm close to that bump, I try and catch it, and if I'm not, I don't.
Top tier surf strategy. I also just want to call out before we move on as well, the only funny line from Joel over these 2 episodes was during this challenge where he said, "You don't want immunity to slip away, but you also don't want to die, so you have to find a healthy balance."
Do you know the other part we haven't talked about? And it ties into the humour. I think Joel's leaning into the humour. I can't believe we didn't talk about this. In episode 9 at the auction, Chris's fart.
Yes.
Whose decision was it to leave a fart in?
I don't know, but it was great.
In an episode that was an absolute banger, that was a really weird moment.
Yes.
But yeah, the humour's still there. Let's then get into the scramble. And in the scramble, we get a couple of really good moments. The first one for me that I loved, and it's another Leilani moment, is that a lot of people getting together, and it's Nathan, it's Tanuke, Leilani, and I think Matthew's there as well. And they're talking and they're saying, now that Pegleg's won immunity, who are we going to say is the decoy votes? And I loved that Leilani said, just don't tell them anything. Brutal, ruthless, but brilliant. Sometimes people get so caught up in who's the decoy, what name do we have to give them, when actually all we need to say is, we're not going to tell you anything right now.
Yeah. Because if you give someone else a name, there's a huge risk that it backfires and they go to that person so that you're throwing out their name. Just say, sorry, we're not telling you.
Yeah. I don't know.
To gain trust, vote for this person doesn't mean it's who we're voting for. Whatever. You just don't need to give them an actual name.
And the Stonewall was really working. You could really tell on Chris and Ashley, they were really confused by, gosh, no one is saying anything. No one's giving a name. I did have to laugh. My wife was sitting next to me as Ashley said, there aren't very many proactive game players or, no one's throwing out a name. Even my wife said, if no one's telling you a name, it's you. you know, if there's not a crazy person on the bus, you're the crazy person on the bus.
Yeah, and I think Ashley does recognise that, but it's just it's a shame that she doesn't have the idol in that situation.
How blasphemous did you think it was for Chris to come crawling back and say, "Shall we stay Lenena strong?"
Yeah, this is just dreadful. I mean, I think that's the correct move for Lenena, but it's just not going to happen at that point, is it?
Okay, should we get into this now? Do you want to talk about the move?
So, I think Calaton's best move prior to Tanuki and Leilani telling Ash to her face that they don't trust her is to go for Doug and drag Chris and Ash in that to get Doug out. But obviously, after they say that to Ash, then I think it is the correct move for them to vote out Ash/Chris, split the vote on him. For Lenina, I think Ash's plan to snipe out Nathan is the correct plan because, if you're looking at numbers, there's 3 Lenina, Chris and Ash in the middle, then 4 Calaton plus Lawrence. So getting rid of Nathan there cuts down Matt, Tanuki, and Leilani down to just 3 people. Lawrence is potentially a floater to pull in. I think it just solidifies the numbers there. And I think by taking out Ash, they're pretty much guaranteed that they're going to get taken out one by one because Chris obviously is not going to vote with them anymore. Lawrence is an easy person to drag in. For me, it's like Peg, Hannah, and Doug just on the bottom now.
I'm not sure I agree, to be honest. Because I think even if they kept them, the risk was always that Chris and Ashley would kind of just swing at the next vote.
True.
They're never going to be solid numbers for you. Maybe they vote for you this round, but I definitely don't see the Doug one. No one wants to get Doug, which is really confusing.
Someone said, I'm not sure who said it, but while it was around the same time as Nathan was mentioned, someone said Doug is a bit of a threat.
Yeah. And Matthew said that to Ashley, but if Matthew's your only worry about having to rally the troops, I think you're pretty safe.
I think if Doug goes, either Tanuki or Matthew is winning this season. I think it's that much of a set in stone thing.
Yeah. So where are they positioned now? I think you do have the 4 Calaton, who are strong. Yeah. You have the 3 Lenena, who are strong per se. But I think just Doug and Pegleg's game is so fluid now in terms of having the relationship with Calaton. I hate to say it, but I do think tribe lines are gone. Apart from the Calaton 4, I think everything else
is the whole tribe, really.
Yeah.
Plus or minus Lawrence, depending on where he ends up going. Where his mother is calling him to go.
Yeah. For me, this was, again, the banger of the episode was Peg's strategy executed to real perfection to me. I really, really liked it. Let's go into tribal council. Obviously, everyone walks in. We have the first member of the jury come in. Baby-faced Lee, I think, comes in. He looked unrecognisable after a day upon Ponderosa. He looks so much younger. There was lots of openness at tribal council. That stuff that you sort of talked about, Matt, in terms of it's not great Survivor gameplay, but it's very real, raw emotion. We had Leilani saying, it's hard for me to trust people after they've lied to me. We had Matthew saying, if I know someone's not being honest with me, I don't smile at them. There was a lot of talk around, if you lie to me, then I'm not going to be your friend anymore, which is unusual for Survivor.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting in itself, but it's just not what we're used to, and it's going to be hard for them to play the game if they're not able to do that.
What I thought was really interesting was Matt talking about how you want to not always be in the majority, but actually you want to walk away with your integrity.
I mean, that was just wrong.
Yeah, it was...
Where Joel's like, would you rather win or... It's just like, I'd rather have my integrity at the end of it.
That feels like an answer by a 21, 22-year-old who's kind of...
That feels like signing to Nuke's check. I mean...
Yeah. But it does play into the jury are going to decide who's the winner. If Matthew's not in the final thing, that's going to be something that he's going to bring up, and someone might be basing their vote on that, which is... It's not the type of winner that... If the winner of Survivor UK is the person who's played the most honest game, I think that's a mistake.
I agree. And I think that's where how great Tanuki and Doug's games are coming across, because they're sort of pretending that they're not playing the game when they
Yeah.
are playing the game. And that kind of comes out in Ash's final words, where she calls out that they're managing to pull the wool over people's eyes.
Totally agree. Everyone gets up to vote, and we then have a moment where Joel asks if anyone has an immunity idol and they want to play it. Now is the time to do so. And Chris, ace move, my friend. The first idol play in Survivor UK is a correct idol play. Chris decides to play his idol and negates the 4 votes that are against him. Really great to see this idol play, wasn't it, Matt?
Yeah, great. I mean, I was slightly gutted because I did really want Ash to stay, but it was a great idol play. And I'm glad that we're keeping Chris because he is playing the game hard. And, you know, it's 4 people out in a row who are playing the game hard. And it's just, I really hope that we manage to keep up this momentum without them.
Yeah. This solidified for me that it solidified 2 things, I thought. One is that he was never going to play it for Ash. So even earlier in the episode, he'd said, I'll play it for you if I think I'm in danger. I just don't think he would have. I know it wouldn't have mattered either way because they were kind of 4-4. So, you know, damned if you do, damned if you don't. But
yeah.
The other thing I thought was interesting, though, is I think, and again, credit to Chris, I think he made the read in the moment about if he was going to play his idol or not. So in typical Survivor seasons, usually individuals have to tell production whether or not they're going to play the idol. And one of the reasons they do that is so when they're reading the votes, they can stack them in this really dramatic way where they read them all in a sequence. You know, Matt does not count, Matt does not count, Matt does not count. Whereas in this one, they were all broken up in a kind of a strange way, which made me think that he changed his decision and kind of done that in real time.
I mean, the jury's out on that one. But so that could be a reason why they've done that. I personally thought that production hadn't thought into that, and they just because in US Survivor, Jeff organizes the votes all the time, regardless of what the names are on them, so that everyone's votes are together and he can pull them out in an order that makes sense. But also, I don't know if that's because Jeff is a producer. Obviously, Joel might have them already ordered for him and they haven't factored in the idol play, or maybe Crystal just did surprise them with an idol play, but they had to kind of know that that was a big possibility.
Yeah. Could you imagine if they paused it? He plays the idol and they're like, oh,
just take his votes back.
Let's just reorder these. Ultimately, we have 4 votes on Chris that do not count. We have 2 votes on Nathan that came from Ashley and Christopher. And then we had 4 votes on Ashley. Ashley becomes the second member of our jury. I think she played a really great game.
Same. I think she played a really, really good game. She's someone that I'd like to see have a second chance. There's always people on All-Star seasons that feel a bit random. I think Ashley is someone that could fit into that archetype of strategic, but just sort of a random pull, if you know what I mean.
Okay, I have to be honest, right? Because we love the cast and we've been very giving of the cast in terms of who's going to come back and who isn't. But we've said a lot of people are going to come back, and the truth is that a lot of them they're not going to make the cut. My feelings on Ashley, if we do a quick in Requiem, I think she was a really good player. I think she showed strategy in the game. She was the first person to form an alliance, which I think was brilliant. I think she's been great in season 1 at kind of moving the game forwards. I think she's a clearly social player, very knowledgeable, was good in challenges. I think we'll remember the hand injury as kind of hindering her. I think in 3 years' time, we'll remember Airhead Barbie, but some of that other stuff will be lost in the mix. And I wonder if she's just going to be a fair to middling player that maybe gets lost when they go to do returnee season potentially.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, we have to see how the rest of this season plays out. You know, if it's a case of Tanuki leading the lambs to the slaughter, then, you know, some of these earlier players will have more of a shot. But if it does evolve further and everyone else starts playing the game, then I do think Ash is someone that could be left behind here.
Okay, so let's also talk about a big moment from this episode that had a lot of people divided on Twitter and on Reddit, and that was after the votes were read. Lee, the self-proclaimed king, says that even though the king is gone, the hitman is still doing his bidding. One, When did Lee become the king? this is a totally new nickname. I stick with El Champo. That's way better than the king.
This is such a Lee thing, though, isn't it? Like, purely.
Yeah. So, how did you feel about this?
I mean, I'll give Lee like grace for it because he doesn't know that people don't do this. Like, he's never seen the show before. But in terms of, you know, production, did they make this clear to him? Did he break a rule here, or did they just not make it clear enough that the jury aren't allowed to say anything?
Do you think he did say anything? Do you think this was edited? Because it almost felt like it was like a totally different scene when he said something. And no one really reacted to it, I thought, from the players still in the game. There wasn't like a real reaction, I thought.
I think he had to say, like, the most editing around it they could have done is that he said it after everyone had left, but
Yeah.
who was he saying that to? Like, that would be a bit weird.
there's 10 hours of unseen footage of Lee just saying. just
Lee's monologue post-tribal.
And do we also need to give now, if he is the king, does that make Chris and Ashley the Kingslayers? Is that...
Yeah, this is true. And then that makes everyone who got rid of Ashley the Kingslayer Slayer.
the Kingslayer. Pegleg, the Kingslayer. Maybe don't lean into that one. That's...
I don't think that'll catch on.
Episode 9 and 10, first episodes after the merge. Flipping brilliant.
Yeah.
Really, really good. Love them. Love them. And a really good sign that there's more to come. We saw in the next time clip that we're going to get a lot of Chris schmoozing, trying to get back in people's good graces. Are your expectations high, Matt, that he's going to be able to do that in episode 11?
So I think there's a few people in trouble now. And I think if people are playing an average Survivor game, which I think they are, then Chris is dead in the water.
Next easy out, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think the writing is on the wall for him. I think the one saving grace is we know that he's going to play hard. He's got an advantage that people don't know what it is. So I'm expecting and really hoping that he leverages that to maybe bring some people on side.
I mean, 2 votes, that's a big help to someone's plan, really.
Yeah, 2 votes against 8, though. It's not massively helpful.
I mean, like, 2 votes to offer someone, like, that's quite a lot to offer people.
Particularly the Lenena people,
Yeah.
Right now, they only have 3/4 if you include Chris Lenena's. But if he uses his double vote, that gives you 5. That means that Lawrence is, you only need one other person to vote incorrectly to get someone out.
Yeah.
Do you think there's going to be another idol? They very specifically showed the scene with Joel saying if anyone has an idol, wants to play it. Is that a clue or is that a red herring?
I could go either way. My initial thought was, could they have edited, were they reacting to something else and they just put that in the clip to give it context? But that feels a bit weird. I feel like someone probably does play another idol. And I think there's a high chance it's probably going to be Chris again. Because I can't see the target shifting so quickly onto someone else that they know that they're going home and then they go and find an idol and then they play it like that. Chris has kind of got himself going on this Ben Bomb train, as they say.
If he does find another idol, it definitely has Ben vibes of how much is production planting easy idols for him to find.
Yeah.
Because I didn't mind the idol in episode 9 where it was hidden.
The clue did basically say where it was.
But I thought there was an element of risk because we've already had Lawrence who spent half of his time living in a cave. So there was real risk that Lawrence could have found that on the off chance. But
while he was looking for caves at the bottom of a little pile of rocks.
he was looking for caves and crabs as big as his mum's feet. But yeah, if Chris finds that idol, plays it correctly, and then finds another one, either he's Russell Hantz reincarnated, or maybe he's getting a little bit of help. Let's get to some Survivor news, because we got a biggie about the final happening on the 16th. And Matt, do you want to break this one? Because you sent this over.
So on Saturday the 16th of December, Obviously, that'll be the final week for Survivor UK. And actually, both episodes are going to be airing on the Saturday. So at 6 p.m., which is very early for this show so far, we're going to get the semi-final of Survivor. And then we're going to have a whole 2 hours of Strictly Come Dancing in the middle. And then we're going to have the final of Survivor on at 9 p.m. What are your thoughts on that, Joe?
I loved it. I really loved it. I'm so there for this. If I'm honest, the Saturday Sunday hasn't been working for me.
Agreed.
It's more than anything, I don't want to spend both nights of my weekends in front of the TV, and maybe that's wrong to say. Maybe I should be more diehard, but I end up watching it all on Saturday anyway. But not feeling like I can join in with the community because I don't want to spoil anything in the second episode.
Yeah, and even then, 2 hours straight of sitting down watching Survivor, while fun, during the first half of the season, it was a massive slog. So, this weekend it was fine because we got 2 really good episodes. But I just think spread it out. If you need to do 2 a week, do like Wednesday, Friday, maybe something like that.
I think Wednesday, Saturday is the perfect way to go. But yeah, I'm loving that the double header is coming on the 16th. That feels really exciting. The other bit of Survivor news that we got is the potential or confirmation of a final 2 in Survivor UK. And so we're getting that information based on the description for the final episode. And let me just read you the particular part that I think hints that there'll be a final 2. So it reads, at the very last immunity challenge, a guaranteed spot in the final 3 is on the line for whoever can endure the longest. With 1 place on the jury, who will fall at the final hurdle, who will make up the final 3, and who will emerge victorious, winning the life-changing prize of 100,000k and title of sole survivor. I'm reading that as a final 2.
See, that says final 3 to me.
Really?
So there's 1 more challenge left.
Yep.
Guarantees you a space in the final 3.
Yep.
So if it's the last challenge and it gets you to the final 3,
but why do an immunity challenge at 3 if you're gonna have a final 3 anyway? Like if 3 people go into the final challenge,
if it guarantees you a spot in the final 3, that means there's no challenges after the final 3.
I see what you mean.
That's really confusing though, because if it is a final 3, that's an 8-person jury.
Oh, that would be brutal, wouldn't it? I think it's too soon for a 3-person final if that is the case.
I agree. And how they're doing Hand on a Hard Idol as well.
Yeah, maybe you're right. You know what? That's going to be the poll question for today. We'll put the description in the show notes. We'll put out a poll here and on Instagram. Let us know. Is it a final 3 or a final 2? How do you read that? Anyway, this week still to come. We may not have talked about your favourite contestant, but don't worry. Our Cast Capital episode is coming up where we talk about all of the stocks from everyone who's still in the game, whether they've risen up our boards, whether they've lowered down. And because this is actually just after merge, you'll get to hear our raw, honest thoughts about who we think is at the top of the tribe and who we think is at the bottom. Matt, do you want to shout out the socials?
Yeah, so they can follow us on Instagram at the Sit Out Bench, all lowercase with full stops in the middle, and over on X at the Sit Out Bench.
But from us here, that's everything. See you next time.
Have a good night, guys.